Looking for a Valentine's gift she'll truly love? 1-800-Flowers.com knows what she wants. For 50 years, 1-800-Flowers has helped guys like you get it right, delivering millions of fresh Valentine's roses nationwide. 1-800-Flowers offers premium fresh-cut flowers backed by their 7-day freshness guarantee, plus same-day delivery when you need them on time. Valentine's is coming up and bouquets are selling fast, so don't wait on this. Order today at 1-800-Flowers.com/podcast. That's 1-800-Flowers.com/podcast.
Finding a hoodie that lasts through the season can be tough. The American Giant Classic Full Zip Hoodie is made to last a lifetime, so you can count on it year after year. The iconic Classic Full Zip Hoodie is the jacket that started it all for American Giant. Custom heavyweight fleece and side panels for mobility make it the best hoodie ever. Every American Giant piece is made in America and designed to last. No exceptions. The result is durable clothing, like the premium Slub Crew Tee, No BS high-rise pant, and slim roughneck pant that become part of your life. Snag the hoodie that will bring you comfort for life. The American Giant Classic Full Zip. Save 20% off your first order at american-giant.com when you use Staple 20 at checkout.
How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 1.
I'm not saying the president took my advice, but I am saying he's doing what I suggested in a late-night phone call with the White House last night and yesterday in my email. Welcome, it's Eric Erickson here. The president is announcing he's sending Tom Homan to Minnesota to take over the situation there. I want to get into the implications, the lay of the land, all of this. I got a lot to talk to you about, so I'm not going to take phone calls for a little while here as I lay all this stuff out. But we need to begin now with the current latest news, and that is the president of the United States on social media is announcing that he and Tim Walz have had a conversation about the situation in Minnesota. It comes after the president announced he would be sending Tom Homan to Minnesota. The president's statement, quote, Governor Tim Walz called me with the request to work together with respect to Minnesota. It was a very good call, and we actually seem to be on a similar wavelength. I told Governor Walz I'd have Tom Homan call him and that what we are looking for are any and all criminals that they have in their possession. The governor very respectfully understood that, and I'll be speaking to him in the near future. He was happy that Tom Homan was going to Minnesota, and so am I. We have had tremendous success in Washington, D.C., Memphis, Tennessee, and New Orleans, Louisiana, and virtually every other place we have touched. And even in Minnesota, crime is way down. But both Governor Walz and I want to make it better. President Donald J. Trump. So that's the latest from the president. I up to the moment the show has gone live today, I have wanted to. I struggle with how to put today together because there's so many moving pieces. So let me start with what I know, like certainly know. And I will move from there to everything else because I want to actually cover the news for you first before we get into the shooting of Alex Preddy and the like. Let me give you the behind-the-scenes information that I know. Now, you're asking how I know. Well, I had a call with a very senior White House official last night, well after 11 o'clock. I have talked to members of the administration. I have talked to members of Congress. I have talked to reporters who have also talked to these people. I've read Bill Melugin and others on this. Here is what I know, just so you understand where we've gotten to. Everyone is blaming ICE for what happens in Minnesota, what they see on the ground there. ICE is not involved. This is the Border Patrol. Kristi Noem, along with Corey Lewandowski and Stephen Miller, last year did not like that Tom Homan, who is the border czar, and Todd Lyons, who's the head of ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, were moving slowly and deliberatively in how they assessed the situation and how they deported people. They decided to move over to the Border Patrol and to seek the Border Patrol's involvement as opposed to ICE. ICE is actually trained, and ICE actually has law enforcement training to deal with these situations. And Kristi Noem did not like that ICE was being very slow. The other thing that Kristi Noem did not like was that Tom Homan is the border czar. The border czar, you need to know, is actually not an empowered position. These czar positions are appointed by the president to tasks, like Tom Homan is the quote-unquote border czar, but he's got to work collaboratively with other agencies, and he can tell them what the president wants, but he doesn't actually have power. The czars have no power. They have to get collaboration and buy-in from others, and so Kristi Noem could sideline Tom Homan. Kristi Noem is technically Todd Lyons' boss and Michael Banks' boss. Michael Banks is the head of Border Patrol. Todd Lyons is the head of ICE. Again, ICE has more law enforcement training than Border Patrol. Kristi Noem wanted mass roundups and mass deportations. Todd Lyons objected to it, as did Tom Homan, because they thought it would lead to chaos and the violence we're seeing now. They objected to going to Home Depots and Targets and restaurants and rounding up people who were Hispanic. They objected to all the things that are happening right now. And so she sidelined them and went to Michael Banks. Michael Banks is the chief of the U.S. Border Patrol, a name, incidentally, you haven't heard a lot about. Why? Well, he was the Texas border czar for 20 years, got elevated to Border Patrol, and he joined Todd Lyons and Tom Homan in objecting to the mass roundups, arguing that innocent people would get caught, American citizens would get caught, permanent residents would get caught, and that would blow back on the administration. So what Kristi Noem did is she elevated Greg Bovino. Greg Bovino was the section chief for Border Patrol out of Los Angeles, who was in charge of the operations on the ground in Los Angeles, and impressed her, Corey Lewandowski, and Stephen Miller with his ruthless zeal in going to Home Depots and Targets and the like. And so she's now bypassed Bovino's boss, Michael Banks, and elevated Bovino to be a direct report to her. In the chain of command, a deputy should report to the chief, but Kristi Noem's allowed Greg Bovino to bypass his chief and report directly to her, and she's empowered him and shut Tom Homan out of the process. And what do we have now? We have multiple situations where American citizens have been arrested because they were Latino. I'm not making that up. That's actually well documented now. We've had permanent legal residents who have been rounded up. That's been well documented. It hasn't just been the criminals, the rapists, the gangbangers, the drug dealers, the recent arrivals. It's been people who've been here for a long time. Now, I support rounding up all the illegal aliens, including the people who've been here 30 and 40 years. Send them home. You've had a good run of it. Go home. The problem is when you spread that far, you wind up rounding up people who are allowed to stay in the country. And they've overplayed their hand. And that got us to this tragic moment with Alex Preddy yesterday, or on Saturday, and Kristi Noem's terrible handling of the situation. The handling of the situation could not have been worse by members of this administration, both casting doubt on Second Amendment rights that Alex Preddy had and saying things they simply could not know. It's been very unfortunate. Now, I want to tell you what I know. I went into this believing that, like with Renee Good, Alex Preddy interfered with ICE, or with Border Patrol. It's not ICE, it's Border Patrol. I went into this thinking Alex Preddy interfered with Border Patrol, was an agitator, and brought this on himself. Some of you will wish to believe that. It will make it easier to believe that. But I watched an awful lot of footage. I did not expect to spend my Sunday watching a man get killed from repeated angles, from multiple different angles. And I will describe for you what I saw. Alex Preddy got into the street off the sidelines to video what ICE was doing, or what Border Patrol was doing. Border Patrol was pushing back some protesters and agitators who were actually harassing the Border Patrol. Preddy was not. Two of those agitators, Preddy seemed to know, and he began to escort those two people away from Border Patrol. Alex Preddy appeared to be de-escalating the situation, getting these two people away from Border Patrol. A Border Patrol agent followed behind them. Their backs were turned to the Border Patrol agent, who shoves them. They are walking away from Border Patrol. Border Patrol agent shoves them. One falls to the ground. Preddy attempts to help the individual. The Border Patrol agent begins to chemically spray them. And Preddy moves to put himself between the Border Patrol agent and the person who's on the ground. At that point, Border Patrol grabs Preddy and drags him off. A scuffle ensues, and Preddy is gunned down. Preddy did not start it. Preddy would retrieve those two people away from Border Patrol and was escorting them out of the street when Border Patrol shoved them, pushing one of them to the ground. You can watch the video for yourself. You can conclude that Preddy was an agitator. You can conclude that Preddy was an activist, disruptor, but you can't deny the fact that he and these two people were walking away from Border Patrol when Border Patrol pursued them and shoved them. Here is what no one now disputes, and this is very important, and this is what changed the president's mind in the situation. It is at this point clear and not disputed by anyone, including by the Trump administration. Alex Preddy had a gun. He did not pull his gun out. He did not brandish his gun. He did not point his gun at anyone. The agents, in tackling him, found the gun. The agents removed the gun from Preddy. And then a Border Patrol agent opened fire on Preddy and killed him. There is speculation. The gun that Preddy had was a Sig Sauer that is known to discharge on its own, or that's the allegation against the gun, and that it may have discharged on its own in the commotion, and Border Patrol agents believe Preddy fired, and they opened fire on him. What is not disputed at this point by this administration is that the agents had removed the gun from him. Now, you can add all the caveats you want, that he shouldn't have brought a gun even though it was his constitutional right. Clearly, if you're there and you get in a scuffle with ICE, you should tell them you have a gun. You should do whatever you can to de-escalate if you're armed. I'm not going to argue with you on that. But what you can't argue with is that he was walking away from the Border Patrol. They shoved them, dragged Preddy back, and they removed the gun from his possession. He was unarmed before they opened fire on him. That is not in dispute by anyone at this moment. If you think it is in dispute, it's because you heard Kristi Noem and Greg Bovino on Saturday rush to set a narrative, and they did so before the facts were known. The president himself is deeply troubled by what happened. I am very reliably told more than a dozen concerned Republicans reached out to the president since Saturday. He spent time with all of them on the phone, and they all told him, you've got to change direction. You've got to change direction. This is going to become a political liability. These people, like you and me, all support the mass deportation effort. And these people who support the mass deportation effort and are more pro-Trump than I tend to be, all are with me on this, that Preddy was disarmed before they killed him. And this is a dramatic change that requires a change by the president. Those are the facts, and they are not in dispute. And to the extent you dispute them, you probably have consumed old information or the spin from Kristi Noem and Greg Bovino, both of whom I suspect are going to be marginalized this week. The president says he's standing by Kristi Noem, but he's also elevating Tom Homan. And I suspect we're not going to see a lot of Kristi Noem or Greg Bovino on TV this week. What happened was a tragedy. It should not have happened. And if you don't think there's going to be political fallout for the president's policies if he doesn't change, you are way too into the Kool-Aid. Because even major Republicans on Capitol Hill who support the president's policies and what he's doing in Minnesota are telling the president privately, you've got to make a change here. And thus he has sent Tom Homan and says now he's talking to Tim Walz in an effort to de-escalate the situation. Guys, you know, when I started thinking about my family and taking care of myself, there are overwhelming number of options out there, and you just kind of get bogged down. The inertia of being overwhelmed means you may not act. Well, let me tell you about SelectQuote, because for SelectQuote, for over 40 years, they've been helping Americans understand their options to get coverage they need. Over $700 billion in coverage and counting. As a broker, their mission's simple: to find you the right insurance policy at the best price. They can take the guesswork out of finding the right life insurance policy for your family, one that meets your budget. Life insurance is never cheaper than it is today. Get the right life insurance for you, for less, no less. And save more than 50% at SelectQuote.com/Eric, E-R-I-C-K. Save more than 50% on term life insurance at SelectQuote.com/Eric today to get started. That's SelectQuote.com/Eric. Don't get overwhelmed. Get SelectQuote. There are a lot of people on the left who say the president won't change, hasn't changed, can't change, incapable of change, and that this situation will continue to deteriorate. For those who believe that, left, right, or center, in the last 15 hours, the president of the United States has chosen not to defend the agent who shot Alex Preddy, said he didn't want to see anyone get shot and called it tragic. He has sidelined Kristi Noem and Greg Bovino and re-elevated Tom Homan and re-empowered Tom Homan to go to Minnesota. He's in touch with Governor Walz, saying they both want to get on the same page and deport people appropriately. These are all the signs of a president of the United States who can assess situations and make changes. What you probably can't fathom, don't want to fathom or realize is, you know, Donald Trump, and I say this and I don't mean it insultingly, so don't hear me be insulting him. He's not per se a great businessman. He's a great marketing man. He knows marketing better than anyone. And he wants to be on the 80-20 side. He wants to be on the 80% side. And he's rapidly moving to get himself there on an issue he knows has political consequences for him. And he is making the necessary changes to do that and should be applauded for doing so in light of the situation. Now, let me tell you about Swiss America. They have been, well, you've seen the price of gold lately, I assume, and silver. They're actually one of the leaders in precious metals in this country. I myself have purchased from them, and they have been explaining what's going on with why these metal prices are rising, what the BRICS are doing, how China's trying to steer other countries to use metals instead of the American reserve currency. highly informative stuff. There's also the secret war on cash they've been reminding people of, and want to give you a free copy of their report. All you got to do to get it is call 800-289-2646. The all-out war on cash includes digital forms of currency as well. Get their report. Takes less than 15 minutes to read. It'll help you with your retirement and finances. 800-289-2646. Just tell them I sent you. You can even text my name, Eric, to 800-289-2646. Also, check them out on YouTube, Swiss America Trading on YouTube. Got a lot of informative podcasts on precious metals, the BRICS, global realignment on currency, Swiss America Trading on YouTube, or call or text 800-289-2646 or go to SwissAmerica.com/Eric. SwissAmerica.com/ERICK. Message and data rates may apply. Hello there. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the United States of America. The phone number is 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, I would be happy to have you, but I am going to talk for a little while. So if you call in, you may sit on hold for quite a little while here as we work our way through the Minnesota situation. I just, on a personal note, want to say that I watched the Renee Good situation play out, and there was no doubt in my mind that it was a justified defensive shooting by the Border Patrol agent. She very clearly hit him, and I was appalled by members of the press working overtime to deny that fact. She hit him. She may not have meant to. She very clearly is trying to turn her wheel to avoid him, but she's on ice and she hits him. And everyone who denied he got hit then were dismissive about the extent of him being hit. They couldn't be honest. And more video came out that she had harassed the ICE agent or the Border Patrol agent. She had used her car to block them, was blaring her horn to annoy and disrupt them. And it ended in tragedy. And it ended in tragedy with the agents telling her to get out of her car and her lesbian partner telling her, drive, drive, drive. And she listened to her partner, tried to drive off and hit the ICE agent and died, or the Border Patrol agent and died. And I went into the Alex Preddy situation thinking it was going to be similar. He is an agitator, not just a protester. He got in the way. He involved himself. Now, I want to say that if you go to a protest and those protests have a history of getting out of hand and you are armed, you risk putting yourself in a more risky situation. My buddy Tim Carney just put this tweet up in the last 5 minutes. Having a right to do something doesn't mean it's prudent to do it. When you're going to protest and perhaps interfere with law enforcement, if you go armed, you are behaving recklessly. I don't disagree with that. But also, I have to tell you that I really am appalled at the statements of Kristi Noem and Greg Bovino and Kash Patel and Scott Bessent when it comes to the Second Amendment. And also, I went into this expecting to conclude, as many of you did, that Preddy really was the aggressor and agitator. And I spent a lot of time watching the videos, and I watched the videos without the narration of people. I didn't want the commentary. I didn't want, because, you know, with the New York Times, they went above and beyond to try to insist Renee Good never hit the agent, and she did. I didn't want the ancillary commentary. I just wanted to watch the videos. And I watched the videos and conclude that the agent overreacted. And I recognize it was a high-stress situation, and I recognize Preddy was armed and it probably reckless given the way these protests have come about. But also, he had been disarmed before they shot him, and that's not in dispute at this point. What I'm also really appalled by is the people around the president who are essentially taking the far left's position on the Second Amendment. And I want to begin with Kristi Noem's statement. This is Kristi Noem in the immediate aftermath of this incident, while facts are still unknown.
When you perpetuate violence against a government because of ideological reasons and for reasons to resist and perpetuate violence, that is the definition of domestic terrorism. This individual who came with weapons and ammunition to stop a law enforcement operation of federal law enforcement officers committed an act of domestic terrorism. That's the facts.
Committed an act of domestic terrorism, she says of this individual. Greg Bovino said that he wanted a mass casualty event. These are the initial statements from Secretary of Homeland Security and the Border Patrol agent in charge that he wanted a mass casualty event was a domestic terrorist. Why? Because he had his handgun with him and a concealed carry permit to carry it. Dana Bash challenged Bovino yesterday about this situation and his statements.
You said yesterday that this looks like a situation where the individual wanted to do maximum damage and massacre law enforcement. What evidence do you have that he wanted to massacre law enforcement? Because all the videos that we have, and I do want to, we just have a still shot up now, but I do, control room, want to play one of the other videos. Let's play video number 1 again. It doesn't look anything like he's trying to massacre law enforcement. In fact, he was filming, and then it looked like he was trying to help another individual there who was pushed down by law enforcement, and then they went after him.
In fact, I believe that the fantastic training that our law enforcement partners have, the fact that they're highly trained, prevented any specific shootings of law enforcement. So good job for our law enforcement in taking him down before he was able to do that. And again, Dana, let's look at why he was there in the first place.
Again, he was there videoing. I think it's deeply irresponsible for Greg Bovino to double down on this man wanted a mass shooting. For those of you who haven't heard the facts, he had a Glock handgun, a 9mm handgun with extended magazines like a lot of us, myself included, have. In fact, mine is sitting right over there. It's pretty common among people who carry guns. Pretty common. And for Greg Bovino to say that this man wanted a mass casualty event, he has no proof of that at all. None whatsoever, other than the man was armed, and it was his Second Amendment right. He was engaged in his First Amendment rights and using his Second Amendment right. And was it reckless for him to do so, given how these? You can make that argument. I concede that point, but also he had a right. And for Kristi Noem to call him a domestic terrorist and Bovino to say he wanted a mass casualty event where there is zero proof of that at all, zero proof. And to double down on it on TV, it's just, this is why, by the way, you're probably not going to see Bovino on TV a lot. And then there's the head of the FBI, Kash Patel.
As Kristi said, you cannot bring a firearm loaded with multiple magazines to any sort of protest that you want. It's that simple. You don't have that right to break the law. And
that's not breaking the law, Kash. It's not breaking the law. You legally have a right to carry a firearm in this country. It's called the Second Amendment, and you can do so at a protest. And in fact, in Minnesota, you are legally allowed with a concealed carry permit to carry a gun in a protest. It is the law, the printed on the page law in Minnesota. He legally had to. You can say it was reckless of him to do so, but you can't say it was against the law. And then there was, as well, Scott Bessent.
For the Veterans Administration, and there's no evidence that he brandished the gun whatsoever. In fact, it appears that he was disarmed before
he brought a gun. Have you ever gone to a protest, Jonathan?
I mean, we do have a Second Amendment in this country that...
Jonathan, have you ever gone to a protest?
I mean...
have you gone to a protest?
I mean, no, actually, as a reporter covering it...
okay, I've been to a protest. Yeah. Guess what? I didn't bring a gun. I brought a billboard.
Okay. Secretary Bessent, thank you.
He had a right to do so. Scott, I don't know that you got a gun or not. I do. I got a lot of friends of mine here in the South who have a gun on them at all times, including in churches. They've got a right to do it. For the members of this administration outside of the president, by the way, I can tell you based on my phone call with the White House person last night after 11 o'clock, these statements have rubbed the president the wrong way because he understands Second Amendment activists are some of his core supporters. So to have his senior people, the head of the FBI, the Treasury Secretary, the head of Homeland Security, the Greg Bovino come out and question someone's right to carry a gun at a protest, the president himself knows it's a problem. Just remarkable there. In all of this, I got to tell you, I got to play this clip from one of these clips from Mika Brzezinski from Morning Joe this morning.
Kristi Noem, and we had Besant and Bovino all taking to the airwaves and repeating many times an immediate conclusion without an investigation, a conclusion that was repeated many times on Fox News, that this man was Alex Preddy, was brandishing a gun and sought to inflict maximum damage on ICE. And to conclude immediately like that, I think is the biggest problem here, defaming the victim. You wonder what state and civil charges or opportunities might come out of that action. But even more, it leads to a bigger issue. This is the second time that has happened in just a few weeks in Minneapolis. A U.S. citizen shot dead, point blank range, and DHS and Border Patrol immediately blaming the victim and calling that person a domestic terrorist.
Y'all can say, well, that's Morning Joe at MS Now, and they're on the left, but I even the president recognizes it's a problem. And for those of you who get mad at me on this, I'm just going to keep repeating, even the president knows it's a problem. Even the president knows it's a problem. And I know the president knows it's a problem. I don't want to take credit for this. I can't take credit for this. I don't know. I will tell you, if you were around on Saturday and got my email, let me read for you what I wrote on Saturday or Sunday morning, rather. This is what I wrote to what I wrote on Sunday morning. My advice to the president and his team is very simple. Repeat after me. We are at this point because the state of Minnesota and city of Minneapolis continue to harbor illegal aliens the American people want deported. The deaths of American citizens are tragic and made more tragic by the governor and mayor whipping activists into a frenzy to stop the federal government for enforcing the laws Minnesota and Minneapolis refuse to enforce. Neither Ms. Good nor Mr. Preddy would be dead, and the Border Patrol would not be roaming the streets of Minnesota if the state government cooperated with the federal government's effort to deport illegal aliens. We will not cease enforcement of federal law because of a mob. The American people voted in November of 2024 for a change of direction away from open borders and mass illegal migration into the country. Kamala Harris's vice presidential nominee is not just rejecting the will of the voters, but inflaming the situation in Minnesota, inspiring vigilantes who are getting harmed and killed, while ICE and Border Patrol agents are increasingly under threat. Then let Homan take the lead and send Bovino elsewhere. You don't have to attack anyone, seed a narrative that may be false, or be defensive if you just repeat what I just said over and over again and send Tom Homan. That's what I wrote on Sunday morning. And then a friend of mine texted me. And the friend of mine said, this was great. I'm getting it to the White House. And then later in the afternoon, the President of the United States put out this. During the 4 years of crooked Joe Biden and Democrat failed leadership, tens of millions of illegal alien criminals poured into our country. I won the election in a historic landslide, and Republicans won majorities in both the House and Senate, in part because of the mass deportation of illegal alien criminals. This deportation effort is underway. Meanwhile, Democrats in sanctuary cities and states are refusing to cooperate with ICE. Democrats are putting illegal alien criminals over tax-paying American citizens. I am hereby calling on Governor Walz, Mayor Frey, and every other Democratic governor and mayor in the city to cooperate. Governor Walz and Mayor Frey should turn over criminal illegal aliens that are currently incarcerated in their state prisons and jails to federal authorities, along with illegal criminals with active warrants or known criminal history. State and local enforcement must agree to turn over illegal aliens arrested by local police. Democratic politicians must partner with the federal government to protect American citizens. I call for the United States Senate or Congress to immediately pass legislation. These deaths are tragic. And then got a call from someone at the White House last night, explained my case that Tom Homan needed to be put in charge. Today, the president announced Tom Homan is going to be re-empowered with direct report to the president, not to Kristi Noem, and sent to Minnesota. The Morning Joe actually grabbed a hold of some of the stuff that I had said. Listen to this from this morning. It's them repeating what I have been pointing out.
Several conservative media outlets are reporting about inner turmoil within the Department of Homeland Security over the tactics ICE agents are using. Conservative commentator Eric Erickson posted on social media, citing multiple conservative news organizations, that Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem has essentially marginalized White House border czar Tom Homan and the head of Border Patrol for prioritizing deportations of criminals and gang members. That's because Erickson contends that Noem and DHS senior advisor Corey Lewandowski wanted broad public roundups without prioritizing undocumented immigrants. Quote, they have bypassed Homan and the head of Border Patrol and elevated Greg Bovino because they want the public confrontations and displays.
And those public confrontations and displays, as the Wall Street Journal editorial page says, hurting Republicans. And as the polls show, their approach hurting Donald Trump's.
It is, and he knows it. The president knows that this is going badly against the Republicans. And my advice to the White House last night was you have to keep the deportations going. My advice was you have to continue to deport people because otherwise the mob wins and you can't let the mob win. But you can continue the policy and also be smarter about it. But that will require someone smart like Tom Homan in charge and not Kristi Noem. You can get rid of the spectacle and accomplish the policy and take credit for the policy. You should be letting us know who's being deported, why they were here and how they got here and why they're leaving. We should give everybody all that information. You can keep the deportations going, but we don't need these street confrontations and roundups of legal residents at Target and Home Depot. That's just bad press. This hour of the program is brought to you by Van Allen Golf. I want you people to know I've started working on my handicap finally. And I, on Saturday, before the weather changed, froze to death on a golf course. And I used my Van Allen putter. It got muddy, sadly. I had to use it to fetch a ball out of the water. I'm not a good golfer. But my gosh, do I love it on the green. You should get a Van Allen putter. Go to vanallengolf.com today, vanallengolf.com, or text the word golf to 33777. If you have a loved one who's really into golf, golfers love new putters, and the Van Allen putter is special. It really is. vanallengolf.com. Now, I got to read you this. So New York Magazine is getting lit on fire today. New York Magazine is a progressive publication. It is being lit on fire by progressives today. Why? Because they have come away impressed with President Trump's mental fitness. That's right. They are impressed with the president. Marco Rubio, in the interview, says that on Air Force One, he sleeps, cocooning himself in a blanket. I cover my head. I look like a mummy. And I do it because I know at some point in the flight, Trump's going to emerge from the cabin, start prowling the hallways to see who's awake. And I want him to think it's a staffer who's fallen asleep. I don't want him to see the Secretary of State sleeping on a couch thinking, oh, my God, this guy's weak. That's the most Marco Trump story ever. Now, let me tell you about my Renai tankless water heater. Y'all, this weekend was cold and the power was out in places and not my house. And even if it was, I knew I'd still have hot water thanks to my Renai tankless water heater because I got it on a UPS backup. I said UPC the other day. It's UPS backup. And it just works. We never run out of hot water. Never run out of hot water. We got our oldest back from Europe. Long story. She did come home. Glad she is, having heard the whole story. And now that she's back, I still don't have to fight over hot water because we have the Renai tankless water heater. It never runs out of hot water, and you won't. You got kids, teenagers in the house, you need the tankless water heater. Made in the USA, reasonably priced, and a wonderful addition to your home. Go to TalkingTankless.com, TalkingTankless.com. Ditch your tank of a water heater, get a tankless heater. TalkingTankless.com.